What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody?
Hey, 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 how's it going?
Did you just slap yourself in the face?
Trying to wake my ass up.
What's going on? Were you up? So you've been partying, huh? I heard you was partying.
No, man, it's just that I went from partying right back into school, you know? It's a crazy thing.
Oh man.
No Labor Day off at Bard. So I was class on
They're
Monday.
like, no, labor. We love labor. That's the
Which is
name of the
crazy,
game.
right? Like custodians right now are working their butts off to keep students safe. You think they would give them the day off, but I also understand like they're just trying to keep kids on campus so they don't go and pick up COVID somewhere. So
Well, I've been hearing that people kids are being expelled at various universities for partying and partying in the dorms, which is like it's so normal. I mean, that's
there's
like
a story,
it's what college is. College.
but you know, we all have to make sacrifices. That's part of this whole thing, right? But of course,
Who needs to make sacrifices? The kids?
everybody.
Well, yeah, I know, but like, these, can you it's hard to think any long term about anything when you're like 18 years old.
18, right? I know, it's true. It's tough.
Look, I'm gonna live forever.
It's tough. I know.
Ball,
I mean, there was some like big gathering in Washington Square Park, and a bunch of NYU kids went there and partied and got suspended.
Oh.
And I saw the media was calling it a rave, but like,
what?
I don't know where that came
it's
from.
Like hardline.
Speaking of raves,
Yeah,
we've got one of the OG visionary leaders of the United States rave scene with us today.
Oh yeah. His name is Chris Milo, aka DJ3, aka DJ3AM, aka that guy that we like, Chris Milo, DJ3, aka the Godfather,
aka a master schmoozer,
and the Godfather of Southern Florida. Just period.
Yep.
Astronaut Ghost, woohoo to you.
But before we get into it, let's run the intro.
Let it rip. Warriors, come out and play, yay. Where's
This is something special for you.
Schmoozing.
So Lonely Sea, Bamboozle.
Schmoozing.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Schmoozing.
So
Are you ready? The show's about to start.
And away we go.
There we go. Well, we've got an amazing picture of DJ3 in the background today, which is a funky background. And it's like, this is such a club photo style. I feel like it's been around forever. Take the photo, swirl the camera around.
Right?
And that's like, this is what you get. This is, it's art.
Yeah. I mean, let's do our PSA that we like to start the show with. 1, register to vote. Register to vote. Register to vote.
That's like 3 in 1. I like it.
This Friday is Rave the Vote.
Yes, that's right. This is going to be our 3rd episode, and it's once again packed full of amazing guests. We got Carl Craig, we got Ace Moma, we got DJ Holographic, we've got DJ Minx, we've got, who am I forgetting? We got more. It's going to be amazing. Yep. So shout out to everybody that's participating. Shout out to everybody that's helped out along the way. And once again, ravethevote.org. Go there. You can register to vote. You can get checked up to make sure that you're registered to vote. And you can order a absentee ballot to be sent to your house and vote by mail. And hopefully, USPS is going to fold before the election.
Well, there's also early voting in a lot of states, so you can go in before there's not a rush, so you can social distance properly.
Oh, yes, this is brilliant.
Stay safe. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can try to vote early and vote by mail and stay safe. But yeah, hit ravethevote.org to register, request your mail-in ballot, and
do it. And join us. Join us on Twitch. Twitch.tv/ravethevote.
No, it's twitch.tv/Lost
Resort.
Right now. We're on right now, my friend.
Lost Resort. It's running right down below. Twitch.tv/Lost Resort. TV.
Yeah.
Check it out.
In other news, still want to shout out justice for Breonna Taylor. We're still working to get some more justice for the police. I believe one of the police officers got fired, but there still are no criminal charges brought against anyone. So this woman was murdered in her bed in the middle of the night. So keep pushing for that justice. And throughout the U.S., everybody out protesting and exercising our right to free speech. You have our support.
Yes, you do.
In less serious news, we just dropped new Soul Clap merch today.
That's right. We got some really sweet items. We got a lovely dad hat and a sorbet tie-dye.
We got t-shirts. We got Soul Clap t-shirts. Can you see that? Can you see that back?
Yeah, you can see that's the old school hands.
Yep.
Yeah, this is dope.
We got
And
Soul Clap Records shirts.
Yeah, we got a couple others, and these incredible face shields. I should have mine close, and I don't. Courtesy of Soul Clap Times, Natasha Thompson. If you're looking to be fashionable and get back out into the world safely, and you want to look fly, check them out. And all this stuff is available at thehive.shop/collections/soulclap.
We need a shorter link for that. Let's get that.
Hey, Marisa.
Yeah. In keeping it moving, we got our Bandcamp Song of the Week. Bandcamp Song of the Week.
The bank.
We need
What's going on, Eli? Talk to us.
We need a theme song for that still.
We do. We still need a theme song. Hey, let's put it out there. If you're watching the show and you love what we're doing, you want to design our Bandcamp Sound of the Week theme song, I would consider it. Why don't you hit us up, DM us, get at us. You know how to get at us. We're not that hard to find, really. And if you got something to share and you want to do a theme song, that'd be great.
Yeah, Bandcamp Song of the Week. And then
All
we
right,
can
who's
put it on
up
Bandcamp. And we can sell it.
And we could sell.
Bandcamp.
Brilliant.
That's right.
Brilliant.
So yeah, we do a Bandcamp Song of the Week because Bandcamp is a great way to support the artists you love, buy music directly, almost directly. I mean, there's Bandcamp, but they take a small percentage and that's it. And then artists and labels get to keep all that money. Whereas on Spotify, stream a song, we don't get shit. So it's a movement. I love what King Britt was talking about last week. This concept of, maybe not putting entire releases on Spotify, using Spotify as a promotional tool to push people over to Bandcamp, to actually purchase the music. So that's something that we're looking into trying for some releases on Soul Club Records. And yeah, we're gonna play around with different strategies and really take advantage. And it's great. I think DJ3 has some stuff to say about Bandcamp too, so we'll get into that and just.
I'm sure he does.
He's changed. He's seen so much that he's seen so many changes, and
I'm curious. I can't wait to get him in the show.
Yeah. So our Bandcamp Song of the Week this week is Saucy Lady, Inside My Love. Saucy Lady is a Japanese-born artist living in Boston for a long time now. We've known her for years. And this is a cover of a Minnie Riperton classic, Inside My Love. Features Yuki on keys. Yuki is another old homie from Boston, super talented. This is a tough song to cover, but she really blew my mind with this one.
It's actually it was co-written by Leon Ware, this song. Originally. Yep. So shout out to Detroit. I think he's from Detroit.
Let's fact check.
Well, let her rip. Let's hear what Saucy did.
Yeah.
And this came out on Star Creature?
She's been self-releasing on Bandcamp. One of the reasons I wanted to feature this because, artist self-releasing is really dope.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen.
carry you further. You are one, I am another. We should be one inside each other. You can see inside me, you come inside me. You are the one inside my mind. You can see inside me, you come inside me. You are the one inside my mind.
Oh, that's tough, man.
This is like perfect for her range, you know? She's got that voice
Right?
that sits up there. And it's like kind of like a flip on the Tribe Called Quest beat.
Right?
Two strangers, not strangers, only lacking the knowing. So really, feeling infinite growing. While we're here, the whole world is turning. We should be feeling our yearning. You can see inside me, you come inside me. You are the one inside my mind. You can see inside me, you come inside me. You are the one inside my mind.
Where do you think she found all that bamboo?
It must be from Japan, though, that picture, right?
Oh, man. I'd love to be in Japan right now. Allie Duncan in the house. Kelly P in the house. Astronaut, you should go take a dip in the pool. Oh, I can't shout you out because I don't know how to pronounce your name. OGC. The OGC King. Oh, snap.
Inside this love with me.
Ooh. Saucy lady, man.
Yes.
She's
And you know what?
come a long way, man.
You know what? We got Saucy Ladies dropping in for a live performance later this month.
Blop, 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 blop.
Ooh. Yeah, we're
There
gonna
you
try
go.
to feature some more of these live performances on the show, and Saucy's
great.
gonna be our next one.
Let's bring him in, E. Let's
Should we
bring
do it?
the
Should we just
man
do it?
in. Let's bring this gentleman in.
Yes.
All the way from Somewheresville, Southern Florida. Southern.
Gatorville? Gators. Oh, he's not backstage. Did we lose 3? We lost him.
Oh, geez. What do we do? This has never happened before on Schmoozing. That's
Oh,
all right.
that studio machine just blanked out getting on my laptop.
Oops.
Good timing on our part, right?
That's okay. We're not going to bring him in yet.
We
There's no reason to bring this guy in.
don't even want to talk to him anyway.
All right. Well, as soon as he gets up, I had a long chat with 3 getting ready for the show, and my God, he took me on this whirlwind back in time, painting the picture of what was going on down here in South Florida back then. I can't wait. Oh, he's back. Let's bring him in. Johnny, bring him in.
There he is.
Booyah! There he is.
All right, so we had a small equipment failure over here on my side. So
That's okay. Welcome to Schmoozing. Failures happen. These things happen. We're not perfect people. We try, but we're not perfect.
How do I make a bigger screen here? Everything was. I've gone from 27 to 13-inch now. So
Oh, your resolution changed up. What is this thing on? It's all right. You look gorgeous.
all right.
DJ3, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I feel like it's been a long time since we've seen each other in person.
It's much too long.
Yep.
Yeah, and it may be a lot longer.
It may be a lot longer. How you hanging in?
We're hanging tough. I'm here with
Like the new kids?
Yeah, for sure. That's a little Boston nod for you. I want to say we're hanging in just like everybody else, but I think who knows? Everyone's struggling in so many different ways with all this, and I don't know. We're just trying to keep optimistic while at the same time, preparing for the worst long now, as far as the touring industry being shut down and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I want to say I'm just only optimistic, but I'm probably cynically optimistic. But yeah, we're trying to figure it out. This is really maybe my first time even getting on the internet doing something like this. This isn't a DJ stream, but it's a stream. And just spent the last 6 months, sort of batten down the hatches and figuring out, everything we can possibly do in terms of grants or assistance and all that sort of stuff. And
sure.
Just trying to keep positive and also still be as creative as possible. So.
I mean, we know from speaking before that this is a very special moment. The 2020 is a very significant year for you. That this is celebrating 30 years in our dance music industry. So, hats off to you, my friend.
Yeah, early in the year,
that is quite an accomplishment. But I'm curious, like when this thing hit, because I asked the same question to I think Kevin Saunderson when he came on the show. You guys have been around just doing this thing and doing it so well for so long. What does it feel like suddenly to not be able to tour when it came slamming shut? I mean, was it a moment? Was it a relief? Was it a panic? Something in between?
It was a panic at first, and I'm just being completely honest with you, because it's one thing for the industry to completely disappear and and to be indefinitely unemployed. But it's another thing for that. It's another thing for it to happen directly before tax time. So, my first thought was, I was like, oh yeah, we'll be fine for a little while, and then I was like, or maybe we will be fine for 30 days. I jumped straight into a whole world of stuff that I am traditionally horrible at, which is anything to do with logistics, about money, planning, any of that sort of stuff. If one of my probably 3 things about like when DJs ask for advice or up and coming artists ask for advice, but somewhere in the 3 things that I say is pay your taxes. So,
taxes, yeah.
So having just kind of got over a really big mountain with all that stuff and feeling like I'd been fortunate enough to be doing this for so many years, and I feel like it's not like I peaked and went away and came back. It's been a nice slow, steady journey, and I was feeling really, really high going into 2020. It's not only 30 years in the game, but 50th birthday. It just felt like some big milestones.
Milo Stones.
Milo Stones, better than kidney stones. Yeah, man, it all hit like a ton of bricks, and then it seemed that not even a moment of everything being paused, and the wheels started to fall off amongst the industry in all sorts of ways. It's been a very I want to hope, apart from all the reveals that have occurred during this time, that it's also a shedding of skin and these things that we are all being forced to examine and have conversations about stick at least somewhat more than they have in the past, because it's not like everyone's going to be back on the road next week. We have a lot of time to look at ourselves in the mirror and be forced to self-examine, as well as well, I don't think anyone is having any problem examining other people right now, but
that's like part of the age of information. You know, you have the comparisonitis, and you just have the ability to just cast your wicked judgment on absolutely all those in your path.
If you would have told me that I would have been, well versed in, SBA guidelines and, what constitutes as law rather than just advice and all that stuff when it comes to money and loans and PPP loans and all these other things that were normally not part of our world anyway, because until this time, all that stuff, wasn't accessible to 1099 income makers. It's a self-employed and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. On the one hand, I feel like, I've been sort of, definitely wouldn't call myself a bookworm. It's not, because I've chosen to be interested in this stuff, but, I'm trying to figure out things and figure out the long now. But really, that's the whole thing with COVID-19, isn't it? It's like it's going to be a 3-act play, 3-act tragedy in the traditional form where, act 1 is basically the 5 stages of grief, where everyone's it's what, denial, anger, the whole lot. And, but act 2 is, the ugliest or the most intense or the one with the big twist. And that's that act I'm calling acceptable risk. And, because everyone everywhere in the world is going to have their own, not only individual, but regional and societal barometer of what acceptable risk is. And that translates into everything. But within our industry, it means, is it okay to have a party or not? Is it okay to do this? Is it okay to do that? And it's been, I think, difficult for everyone to see, there's people mad at the big names playing at the parties. There's people mad that the party isn't happening at all. But it's also difficult to see the parties that are, for all intents and purposes, allowed to happen in places where the curve was flattened enough, so to speak, and all that. But, I just look at, it's all fluid, like you're already seeing France and Spain having record cases this week again. Yeah. And
Yikes.
And, we never really flattened the curve, did we here? And so flu season's just around the corners, all that type of stuff. I just, the third act of the play with all this will eventually be, the new normal. And unfortunately, the longer this lasts, the more different the new normal is going to be than what we were used to before. There's going to be a lot of stuff that changes permanently. So
I have a friend who is active with an organization called nighttime.org. Which basically is a network of nightlife professionals, venue owners, nightlife mayors, or other non-governmental folks who are involved with policy or in city governments. There actually are nightlife mayors in more and more city governments.
I like it.
And they're doing a series of reports called the Global Nighttime Recovery Plan. And he was saying that, they've been figuring that they're looking at around 90% of independent venues closing before this is over, which is staggering to think about, but doesn't really seem that unrealistic when you start thinking about this, and we don't see an end in sight.
Yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic at all. Before that, a year or two ago, you in America, you started to see, a lot of nightclubs closing down, and already, I'm not saying I'm not doing a Trump's fault specifically for this thing, but the capital gains tax created a whole real estate tax thing called opportunity zones. And basically, if even a club like Output is in Williamsburg, even though you'd think it's completely gentrified and all that, it's still an opportunity zone where you buy a building in an area of the city that's not deemed, this high up economically. And then you have 10 years with basically full tax break to turn it around, develop the property into a business or sell it for a gain. And then on top of that, you can also group up with people and do opportunity funds. It's just so we were already losing nightclubs to begin with.
You're saying because of these opportunity zones, because the developers were selling their buildings and trying to get in.
All for what was the most the best tax break for the 1%. And now, now we're going to lose it to, COVID-19. It was already demoralizing enough, I think. Don't let anyone kid you. All nightclubs are for sale.
Look, though, on the flip, right? It's like what my friend's point was is that this is an opportunity for us to kind of re-envision how we want our industry to be. What we want this to be, and it's something that I was already thinking about as I got more involved with like climate activism and sustainability stuff, and like how unsustainable the travel is, both environmentally and emotionally, psychologically on a lot of artists. How unsustainable nightclubs can be, with all the trash they're producing, all the energy they're using, and also festivals. I mean, maybe worst of all, the carbon footprint of festivals because of people traveling to festivals, because of all the trash that's created, because of all the power that's generated. It's like, how do we now take a step back and re-envision how all of this whole system works? And it's a unique opportunity for that. I mean, obviously there's many people who are not going to be thinking that way and just trying to open as fast as possible to the way it used to be. But I would argue that you're not, it's going to be almost impossible to do that.
I don't think it's ever going to get back to the way it was. I really don't know enough about the numbers and stuff it's hard for me to think, are there enough individual DJs traveling, like those planes are going to be full with people traveling. It's like, is the solution, this small percentage of people no longer traveling and flying, for work, or is the solution cutting back on air travel in general? But, the one thing that I think is certain is, regardless of how long it takes, it's probably an inevitability until there is more fuel, more environmentally friendly ways to put people in the air, that this will eventually, be reduced over time. But now I think, you're seeing it, well, it's not being fast tracked. It's been literally, forced upon us,
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's tough. Yeah. So I'm the way I see it is plan for the worst. I would love to be able to be DJing locally or regionally, whether that means, just in the city near you live in or in the state that you live in, be able to travel around the state, or be able to travel around the country based on regional infection rates and all that type of stuff. And that's, I think, what everyone is expecting to be the case at some point. And I do think that's something to be optimistic for. I do think it's a possibility. But to be able to be doing your summer in Europe and all that stuff, I think we're, a way off from that,
Well, let's see if they even let us in over there.
Exactly. I just saw that it's Britain, right, that has raised the price of or did we? I don't know. All I saw is the price.
Started. It's just like a chicken or an egg sort of situation.
Well, the price of work visas have gone up 50%.
I saw that. It's like already hard enough, and they also said it's going to be harder to get. So basically, they're keeping out European artists now. So I mean, I think it's only inevitable that we're going to eventually have some backlash from this.
Yeah, the only positive out of that is it means domestically based artists that aren't jockeying for position as much with touring artists, but that's a really awkward,
selfish, right? It's a selfish reason.
Yeah, what's that?
I mean, cultural exchange is so important, right? It's always been something that's been so crazy to me, that artists, not just musicians, but other kinds of other artists, visual artists, performance artists, actors, whatever, have such a hard time getting a visa to come in the U.S. This exchange of cultures is what makes the arts and creative industries vibrant in a country.
Bureaucracy tends to, be the last to understand that, or the last to care, because they just look at it as, additional manpower spent, work hours spent processing things like that and stuff. But I mean, God, it's all getting quite tragic here early on in the chat, isn't it?
I mean, look, it's okay to talk real talk about the tough things that are happening, and that is a part of a schmooze. That is
it's
true part of a schmooze.
Like I said, it's the era of acceptable risk, and all of us will know when, after the fact, the moment that we did the wrong thing. If it's the day we went, to the bar, or we stood in line at the super crowded store, or whatever it is, whatever it is people are doing, and I see so much, so many people arguing the validity of the virus and whatnot, and saying that the numbers are being padded, this, that, the other. But it's no different than the flu or anything else. Most people don't just die of pneumonia. They started with the flu, then they have bronchitis. Hardly anyone is usually dying of one thing. And then I see the other argument of, oh well, it's all people with existing conditions, so if you just eat healthy, everything will be fine, and blah blah blah. So the real conspiracy isn't that there's a conspiracy about whether this virus exists and is potentially killing people. The conspiracy is people not realizing that all these things that we do under the umbrella of quarantine and restrictions are to protect other people, and not about ourselves and what we get to do for ourselves.
Well, that's like the real kicker for me, is watching people, not respecting these boundaries under the guise of, hey, I'm young and you can't control me. And really what they are doing is endangering others. That's just, talk about selfishness. Like, this is a terrible quality,
And then, the big clapback, no pun intended, soul clap. The big clapback on that is always, well, they're not going to have me take this, vaccine and all that stuff. And it's not that. What the point that everyone's missing is, like most problems that, we as a country are used to just magically being solved and going away, this one isn't going to go away, in the fashion of those old ones, and I see people too being like, well, what about 1918? And then even the 2009 pandemic, they just magically went away. But the fundamental difference between all of those and this one is all the previous ones that did eventually magically go away within 1.5 to 1 to 2 years, is there was an age group with an identifiable antibody eventually, sometime in the early arc of the virus, and that has not happened yet with COVID-19. And there's a good chance it might not happen, and also a much better chance, more likely, that it's not going to happen for a while.
This is the herd immunity argument, basically.
Yeah. Well, like with 1918, I forget the age group, but there was a large age group that had immunity, and in 2019 that also happened again, and I think that has a big part to do with the pathology and the history, the history of the virus, how it can go away. I'm not an epidemiologist.
Wasn't there something back then about like syphilis immunity and like parties where people can go, if they had syphilis, they could go to the party if they didn't have it?
I don't know.
Am I thinking of the wrong disease?
I don't know. Let's get off the syphilis, but I can imagine a world where if you're vaccinated, you've got a wristband, and if it's proven that you can't do it, then you're allowed to go clubbing, stuff like that. Maybe that is the future. But it just at the moment it seems unlikely that this is all just going to magically not be a thing, or at least not be a thing to a point where we can all go clubbing into festivals again. And it like I said, I'm cynically optimistic. I want it to happen. I want spring to have, clubs. And, a month ago, the idea of like these socially distanced events with everyone has their little, couch area and stuff, that all, I was just like, oh, God, I'd rather eat glass. A month later, now I'm like, oh, that actually sounds kind of cool.
It sounds fun. Get me a couch. Get me on the couch. I'm just thinking about, once again, like when we were speaking a few minutes ago about 30 years in this industry, about you being one of the founding fathers, if we can say so, of the rave scene, electronic music scene in this part, in the southern part of the country. I see you getting ready to bat that compliment off, and that's
founding fathers of the stretch. But there were people around when things first started to happen. But for
sure, I think you played. I would say you played a role, or it seems as though you played a role. But what I'm getting at is, like, can you like go back in time and think of like this distant future where like electronic music is a globalized thing, and like people are just scratching at the doors to get back out into the world and continue raving? Like, what I'm saying is that like this is such, I imagine, going from such like a subversive underground culture, this tiny little idea that you guys had back in the late 80s and 90s, fast forwarding to today, that still blows my mind, like how much it's grown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, the more, the more something is accessible to people, the more it grows. I mean, whether we all know the story, and in fact, that's the big focus right now is it's like not only black and Latin, but gay black and Latin, and this all eventually grows into the general public, white middle class America and the world. Like I mean, the rave culture grew, and it became the world's culture. And so, can I imagine that there would have been a point where it's as big as this? Sure. I think the first time I even got a notion of that was the first time I got a little bit kind of, well, this sucks. It's this big thing now, and that was 1994. By 1994, there were already these huge, mega parties and stuff, and there was already a different mindset with how that stuff was, planned out, plotted, booked, thrown, and then all of a sudden, if a band like Orbital was coming to play, it no longer was at a nightclub and they were playing at 3 a.m. It was being done like a rock and roll show. It was doors at 8, and then closes at 11. Pack up the van. When an industry grows this quick to where you can plug and play all the parts into an existing industry construct, it's supply and demand, and that is what and will happen. I mean, I did not. I feel like I had really good eyes on every turn that things were going to take in terms of trends in music, what was going to happen next, when each bubble was going to sort of pop in terms of peak of the industry. You had sort of the 95, 96 bubble, the 2007, bubble. And in this decade, it's weird because you had a cyst very quickly grew on the culture, which was, David Guetta's woke up one day and had his morning coffee and thought, what can I do to get this music on the radio? And then you had the EDM bubble, and so while that was happening, I thought to myself, the only thing that can possibly happen after EDM's bubble burst is house and techno. Because I always wondered, will house and techno ever be the most popular music? And just like that, over the past 5 years, that's what happened. And now, the corporate bubble that is due to pop, is main stage underground, if you will. And I think it's interesting timing that it's happening right at this end of the world moment that we're having.
Corporate, not corporate tech, business techno. That's what they're calling it.
Sure, that's what. Yeah, I mean,
business techno. I love that. But you mentioned these like kind of bubbles, right? And I would say like there was you missed. Well, there's a great book called "The Underground Is Massive" by Michelangelo Matos.
He's one of the good writers. Yep.
Kind of covers the history of the U.S. rave scene, but each chapter is about a different kind of seminal event, kind of along this timeline.
Yeah, I actually spoke to him while he was working on the book.
Yeah, you were definitely mentioned in there. And there was like this bubble in the like early 2000s, right? That was.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's an industry bubble.
Like global trance bubble, trance / electronica, or like late night, right around 2000 actually, right? And even a little bit after that, like all the super clubs were still open in all the cities, like Avalon in Boston that we would go to.
Yeah.
And people were playing in those clubs.
The bubbles I'm speaking of are from the perspective of underground swells. But yeah,
but like this was related, right? And then the super clubs all closed, right? And then there was this absolutely dead period in the early mid 2000s, where even in New York City there were no parties, right? And it wasn't until those in the mid 2000s the underground parties started, like Black Market and Mini Moo and all these things that kind of brought it back. And like so that was this other bubble, right? And it took years to recover. And I would argue that this is where it may be in a similar phase. However, it's different because it's like because of the internet, like people can still listen to and consume the music, even if it's not in clubs.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. More than ever, that's been a thing, since the early O's, but back when you would listen to what was it? Groove Tech on Real Player.
Oh yeah. Real player. Wow.
Stream this. Yeah. Um, yeah, that, the tide going in and out like that is never going to change in terms of, the mechanisms involved. But, when I say mechanisms, I mean financial. The mediums will change for sure. And that's what we're staring at now is, a world where, electronic music is being forced to become DJ culture is being forced to become, MTV AMP in some capacity, and it is becoming that, and it will become that, and it'll stay that way even when people are able to go out in whatever capacity they're able to go out to again.
These streaming platforms. I mean, this stuff's not going away. This way to consume music, it's not going anywhere.
And like we spoke, I know we chatted about this the other day, but the industry's moving at light speed in terms of, making it so that and we can argue on whether it's a fair amount or pennies on the dollar till we're blue in the face, but the industry is getting to a point where a DJ mix can go up and it's all cleared and all the tracks are generating money every time someone hits play, and that's and I'm talking about outside of models like subscription services and stuff, which I am very much in favor of, things like subscription services. But and obviously the big thing to talk about now with all that stuff is big streaming. And I know I was tuning into you guys last week with King show, King Brit, and everyone's trying to figure out the streaming thing. And for me, Q-Burn does one of the best industry blogs, Q-Burn's Abstract Message.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
He does one of the best industry blogs there is. If you want to get pretty much the best information and the best off the cuff commentary about the hows and whys of what's going on, I highly suggest subscribing to his blog. It's
awesome. What's the name of that?
I think he's currently calling his newsletter Ringo Loves Lawn Care. But I think his blog is still 8D blog. But you might want to have someone check. But it's 8D, I believe his website is 8D Industries. But he's got some really great musings on Spotify lately. But I think 2, 3, 4 years ago, I would hear people just I couldn't get 2 minutes into a conversation about download stuff, in terms of my business because streaming, what about Spotify? And they would always have these examples of some underground artists who all of a sudden went from doing the majority of their income via downloads to getting it from Spotify. And I'm like, I think it's, the causality of that is unique to each one, because as we know, Spotify is really only a benefit. And now we know for sure, 5 years ago, maybe people were arguing more, but Spotify is really only a benefit to superstars and celebrities. So for me, I know King was talking about only putting 1 or 2 tracks of a release on Spotify.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that because I was already treating it from the and this was Q-Burn's thing. It's like Fight Club. First rule of big streaming is you don't talk about big streaming. And the rationale behind it is the people who use Spotify, they already use it, and it's what they're going to use, and it's very unlikely you're going to change their habits. There's a possibility, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So that's fine. But what I realized is I've never told anyone about Spotify. And earlier 6 months ago, earlier this year, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take all our music off big streaming. Because we're not getting anything from it and it's stupid. And then I got our quarterly statement a month or 2 ago, and I was like, what's this extra X amount of dollars? And I looked, and it was all from big streaming. So that meant with absolutely zero mention, without ever pointing anyone anywhere to it, never mentioning a link. I don't even have Spotify, so I can't even. I have to use the go just from the standard Google web search to even see any of our stuff there. I found that we were still, I was like, all right. So maybe the answer isn't just to remove everything from there, but just to be completely silent about it. So a bigger, bolder step, I think, is what King is suggesting, which is only putting a couple tracks on there. But where that doesn't quite hold water for me is that's assuming that you're able to speak to your entire fan base, and I don't believe, especially on Spotify, that you are able to do that.
Right.
So I think that if I remove everything from Spotify, then I'm losing, and it makes it sound like it's much more glorious than it is, but I'm losing that free money that I'm getting by never talking about Spotify at all, or at least a large portion of it. But so I look at Bandcamp, Bandcamp's so interesting, but I look at Bandcamp as a functional streaming site. I don't even look at it as, or either that, or I would call it a full service download site. And that's probably a better description of it, because you can buy downloads there, and you have your choice of how you want to download. You can download AIF, you can download WAVE, you can download 320, and you have unlimited streaming. And they apparently have a great phone app, which zillions of people stream music on their phone. So, it works that way, and it's great. It operates in a way that everyone is super hyper focused on, the independent angle of it, because we're in charge. We upload the music, love that. And then, we make X amount more money. The labels and the artists makes X amount more money than you do from conventional download sites. So that's fine. But I am always weary when anyone is focusing too much on one outlet that they don't own when it comes to talking about being independent. So the biggest argument for that previously would have been Facebook. Facebook to me is and has always been a paid real-time messaging platform, paid advertising. It's something that I've used for DJing and my record label. The majority of the complaints that I see about it are more about people's social interactions on there. That's created by habitual usage. So with Bandcamp, who's to say that on any, there were rumors of Bandcamp looking to sell a couple years ago. Who's to say Bandcamp might not sell it any day? And even if they don't,
good point.
And who's to say that at any, just like everyone's, oh my God, Instagram sold. Oh my God, WhatsApp sold, and all of a sudden it's owned by Facebook. Well, don't be surprised if one day Bandcamp's owned by Amazon. And instead of taking 30%, they're taking 55% or something. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, and Bandcamp is amazing. If you are self-released, independent, tired of trying to get signed and all this stuff. I mean, there are people having massive, massive success, and there's clear examples of them. And there's even people you've had on your show doing great, with Bandcamp. And I've found, we only got on Bandcamp maybe in February with Halucienda. And I was really curious to see, I'm like, okay, does this mean all of a sudden I'm going to go from selling this many downloads on Beatport and Juno and Clone and everyone's going to move to Bandcamp? Like, am I going to just lose a bunch for the other? In fact, I don't think I lost any percentage of customers. And in fact, I gained about 50% more. There's a whole world of Bandcamp. So Bandcamp,
they're all different ecosystems. Like each one of these sites, even like, Spotify, Apple Music, there's people who use Deezer and that's all they use for their streaming, right? There's people who use Beatport and that's where they buy all their music. There's people, but they're not the same people who are using TrackSource. Just like Bandcamp people are not necessarily DJs, whereas Beatport, TrackSource are definitely DJs that are buying music.
So with Bandcamp, it's more like a farmer's market or a record fair.
I love that.
And then it also opens up because of its independent nature that way, and because it is independent very much in a similar fashion to a farmer's market or a record fair. There's also things going on there that are, kind of questionable,
Well, like the guy selling out of the back of his truck.
Yeah, so anyone can upload their bootleg there and sell their bootleg. And then there's, I see other people who kind of don't understand how all of this works, and rightfully so. It's confusing unless you've spent, decades working in this industry. But I've seen people recently on Twitter saying, is it time for us to just move all our mixes from SoundCloud to Bandcamp? And I'm like, okay, well, SoundCloud is a storage and playback entity. Bandcamp is a retail entity. So, the only simple argument I could give you is the way in the 90s, it was okay if you were selling bootleg mixtapes of other artists' music on cassette, but when you started selling on CD, that's when artists and labels would get mad because, that's high quality, that. So it's a sort of a similar thing, but there's even DJs we know, selling DJ mixes on Bandcamp at the moment, and technically that's illegal, and uploading your bootleg remixes up there also kind of illegal, but you can do that anywhere. And, everything's okay in dance music until it isn't. We can get into that later. So Bandcamp's interesting to me. There are things it could do that could probably instantly make it monopolize the industry in terms of DJ stuff. And the main thing is if they made it so that the player would play as you skim through pages, But for now, it's one track per page, one track at a time. It's very difficult to use that way. And then,
I mean, their technology has always been kind of behind. That's one downside of Bandcamp that, like, they've always been a little behind with the technology, or maybe more than a little bit, But that's kind of why it's very simple what it does, and it does it.
A lot of it's intentional. Like there is a reason that Sony can't go and in one button upload their entire catalog. There's a reason that you have to do one release at a time and all that type of stuff. It's because they want it to be that way. They want it to be grassroots in this regard. But if they fix the the player thing, I think a lot more DJs and would probably migrate. Because I think Beatport and the rest of the download industry could level the playing field by what they offer in their single purchase, Eighth Wave 320 in one single purchase like Bandcamp, and by pricing a little more competitively. Now that said, I've never heard of it's difficult for me to think of any valid complaint I've heard about other sites like Beatport in terms other than pricing. Like you get these cats who post on Facebook, thanks Beatport for uploading those crappy vinyl rips of my favorite label. That's not how it works. If you think anybody but the content provider, the person who either owned the music, made the music, or the label or the publisher that owns it, who has it to create a contract to sell the music, isn't the person who put it on Beatport, you're confused. So things like what I do like about those type the more traditional download stores is they do contribute to the culture in terms of things like charts and this sort of stuff. And a lot of people are already scoffing, going, "Oh, but charts and the Beatport Top 10, That's not even what I mean. Any record store you walked into back in the day, and most probably still do, had a sales chart, okay? And then they had specific genre charts, okay? You don't have to look at the top 10. This isn't about buying the popular music or following the herd. But what the number, I'd say one of the biggest drivers of sales of a record is charts, chart culture, so label charts, DJ charts, and it's the easy, like, what would you rather do? Read a long form editorial style record review on a dance music media website, where it's clearly, written from a tribal perspective of opinion. This isn't cool and why. Or would you just be like, "Oh, I like this DJ. Let's check out his chart."
Absolutely. I think curation is a huge part of it.
Curation's a huge thing. So,
yeah.
And I know this is a big part of Bandcamp because, that's why else would Avalon Emerson have made the Buy Music Club? That's charts for Bandcamp, So there's lots of things where it can draw together. None of this is a knock on Bandcamp. My only knock on Bandcamp would be is the pious Bandcamp user. I only buy on Bandcamp because the artist gets all the money. It's like, fine. The truth be told, most artists and labels are just happy you're buying the music. And yeah, we all have. I only have a very short list of stores that I want people to buy from. Bandcamp, Beatport, or outlier smaller places like Clone or whatever. I don't want people buying from iTunes. Just for sake of fidelity, audio quality, stuff like that. But what I don't want to happen is there to be this landslide where people are only buying from one place, and I think we're far off from that. But when I see the momentum of everyone getting their spears out, Bandcamp only, or you're not helping people and labels and artists, not sure about all that. I don't think anyone should have full blind faith and devotion in an outlet like Bandcamp. Bandcamp is already. You have noticed that artists that are selling vinyl only releases, that they make it cost $1,000, so you're forced to buy the vinyl. That's because Bandcamp took away the ability to sell things as vinyl only, and only labels that have been grandfathered in. Only labels that have been grandfathered in still are able to do that.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. I mean,
you have to game the system by either making the price too high, or there's a drum and bass label called Dead Man's Chest, I think. If I'm wrong, sorry, Dead Man's Chest. That does a really cool workaround where they don't upload the songs, and instead they put in SoundCloud links so that you can hear the audio that way. And please, let's not get started on a vinyl versus digital thing. I'm just talking about one way where Bandcamp is already behaving more like an Apple or the government, where they're saying, and this is a quote from their email. To
Apple or the government.
A quote from an email about this vinyl only thing from Bandcamp said, it said, "Trust us, we know what your customers want." And I just thought to myself, oh, fuck. Sorry, I'm not but so this is why I just if you are an established artist or label, now more than ever, the best thing that you can do, regardless of how small or slow moving it may seem in the beginning, is to have your own web domain, your own website, your own place to sell music. Okay. And even if you're just back ending to Bandcamp, drive people to you. Yeah. And you can link out to your social media, you can link out to your Bandcamp and your Beatport, but don't make the center of your presence in this industry something that isn't yours. We've been forced to do that long enough with social media companies.
It's a great point, man.
And now granted, that's not easy for everyone. If you're an independent artist who's just making a track and uploading it to Bandcamp, that's probably your best look at the moment. But you should always be thinking that way. Ownership is the foundation of independence, and I think that's really important. That's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, we've struggled with this a lot because we have our Crew Love subscription site that's been going for well over, I think, around 5 years, maybe more, 6 years now.
Yeah.
And at various points we put more energy or less energy into it, but recently been focusing more on Bandcamp. But you got me now inspired to look back at that site.
But here's the thing: even if Bandcamp is your focus, try to get people to go to Bandcamp through your website.
The Crew Love site is a subscription model we built ourselves. So basically, you subscribe to Crew Love, you get all the Soul Clap Records releases, you get all the Wolf and Lamb releases, you get all the Double Standard releases, you get mixes, you get bootlegs. So we're offering a lot of exclusive content.
Sure.
And that's something that Zev really was. Zev is very much like you. Like he's pushed this the whole time. Like these sites come and go, like Bandcamp, like whatever it is, and we need to own our own so we can control what we do.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just don't bet the farm on Bandcamp. Use these platforms to the best of your ability, tweak them, do whatever you can, game the system. But just know that, if and when things like that go up in smoke and or turn their backs on you in any measure of ways, the two legs that you're standing on in the culture of your art or your commerce as an artist are the most important. So I think the subscription stuff is brilliant and it clearly works. And I got to say, subscription stuff via Bandcamp is really awesome. It works great for people, and I recommend people do it. Especially if you and I'm very weary of being misconstrued. Like when I say this, to be misconstrued like that Spotify guy was saying, but just be. You don't have to be regular. You don't have to be putting up stuff all the time. That shit that Spotify guy said was pretty, off the mark that way. Pretty insulting.
That's their whole thing is just put up music constantly. That's what they encourage.
But just be consistent in what you do put up. Just in your behaviors where art meets commerce. If you're going to go through the trouble to do it, put in the effort, put in the work, pay attention, keep your eyes open, interact. If people are asking you questions privately, and when I say interact, it doesn't mean post on Instagram. You can do it however you want, whatever works for you. But I just don't like it when people get real tribal and they just start judging by the medium or the platform that people are using. And you're probably sitting there, but aren't you judging about Bandcamp? No, I'm not judging about Bandcamp. I'm just putting out I'm just trying to make people think, independence first. And I can't state that enough. And I'm glad to hear that Zev thinks so too.
They're talking about Zev from Wolf and Lamb, everybody. In case everybody doesn't know him on a first name basis. Speaking about getting to know, and I'm sorry to just kind of like steer the ship here, but for people that are like watching this and be like, who the hell is this guy, DJ3? What the hell is he talking about? He's going on about Bandcamp and all the industry and the world and the government. Who the hell is this guy? Can you like just bring people up to speed in like as short as possible on like who you are, where you come from, and what you're like, what the hell you're doing here on this show.
I am the last person who should be telling anyone why I should be here or the value of what I
All
have.
right, look, I'm gonna try to do a synopsis because I watch your RA exchange, buddy. So everybody, this guy here, DJ3, his name's Chris Milo. He's from South Florida, and he got interested in dance music. He came from Miami bass and hip hop and disco roots, going to roller skating rinks like so many other people in his generation, where it was really the only place that you could hear the music. This wasn't music that was being played on the radio. This was stuff that was
music. You know, this is
pre-house. This is we're talking industrial music. We're talking electro.
Yeah.
We're talking freestyle.
Well, house and industrial were happening at the same time. I mean, you know, when they say the first house record was made, 83, something like that. But like, you know, house was happening in Chicago. You know, like Master C and J Dub. You know, all the way before rave culture. 8-9 years. Master C and J Dub Love was 1986. You know, and I could go to the mall in a suburb of Tampa, 30 miles outside of Tampa. You know, small town suburb. And I could go to the mall, and there's a Trax records section in the fucking mall at Camelot Music.
Get out of here.
I've been swearing a lot. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
I think it's fine. I don't mind.
The
critics might think otherwise.
Landlord Records and Johnny Rocca, Move. You know, I bought those records at the mall as a teenager. But,
I mean, that's an incredible distribution network for Trax Records so early. That's insane.
House music was an industry nearly in and of itself in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, you were moving.
Sure.
If you had a good record, you were moving 10 to 30,000 copies within Chicago alone of a record, and you know, before rave culture. So, but industrial music, you know, that stuff all met in the middle. You know, and Medusa's in Chicago is the the ground zero of all that. You know, the guy from Medusa's recently passed, but that's where you had the melting pot, of just, the punk kids, these kids, that kids, everybody there, white, black, gay, straight, everyone, and, Trax Studios was right on the other side of Wax Trax Studios, if what I've read and been told over the years is true. So you had, Marcel Jefferson on one side, Alan Jurgensen on the other, from Ministry, that sort of shit.
Wild.
And, all those dots connect. There's so many dots, like Van Christie was the recording engineer for Louis French Kiss, and Van Christie did an industrial group called Die Warsaw. Like, everyone's there, everyone's involved, so, for the acid house, happening in 88, but in America, it's still alternative dance music is what's going on in the nightclubs. So I'm 18 going out to clubs and I'm hearing, Skinny Puppy Assimilate into Revolting Cocks, No Devotion, into This Is Acid, into Master C, that's what alternative dance was. And again, I still look at Medusa's as ground zero, but you had huge cultures of this in New York City, Miami, Tampa, like all of Florida. Florida was, I think, possibly the third biggest market for Wax Trax records. And then Dallas, come on, Dallas and the Start Club, and that's pretty much the building blocks of ecstasy culture there. All these dots were connecting for me in all sorts of ways. But where the skating rink goes into that is freestyle and electro and Miami bass. That's what got played at the roller skating rink. So it was like John Robbie, Arthur Baker, Pretty Tony, and then the Two Live Crew were actually a California act before they came to Florida, and you had Mr. Mix. God, what was that one song? Holy crap! I wish I could remember that off the spot. But and then you had Dr. Dre, Egyptian Lover, and then you had that other crew associated with Egyptian Lover doing records like Yes, 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 and
Everlasting Bass.
That sound was coming from all over the country into the roller skating rink, and then I remember though the first time I heard house music, I was 16 years old, and in my friend's car in Newport Richey, Florida, and 16, and I got in his he had a Trans Am, and I had all my tapes were either the New York freestyle and electro, or they were because in Florida in the 80s, you weren't born in Florida. You were probably there because of a divorce. You know, your parents either got divorced or they retired and you moved to Florida. So
I thought everybody's an ex-con down here. That's what I'm coming to find out.
Yeah.
The more I live in Florida.
So everybody would move from Michigan to Boston and Philly, New York, Pittsburgh for me. You know, something would end up making you move to Florida. So you would get mixtapes from people who lived in New York, you know, because they listened to Chuck Chill Out, DJ Red Alert, you know, so like WBLS. So I had all those tapes with the hip hop, which were basically just Red Alert cutting the beginning of 2 records over and over 4 or 5 times, letting it play, doing it again, doing it again, doing it again. And then I even had an Electrifying Mojo tape from Detroit, which I still wish I had that. It had a version of Al Nafish by Hashim that I have never ever heard again in my life. I wish I had that. But you know, so predominantly though, electro freestyle, and then the hip hop stuff from New York. So when I got in this kid's car from Chicago at age 16, 1986, and the music sounds just like all that freestyle and electro stuff, the synthesizers and stuff. The drum sounds are very similar, same drum machines probably, you know, but it was all just this 4/4 beat, and I was like, how come the beat never changes? What is this? And he's like, this is what we listen to in Chicago. No, it wasn't like that. And so
that's quite a Trans Am.
Little did I know at that time, you know, like, because there still wasn't rave culture, you know, but I was cognizant of what house music was then, even in 1986 in Newport Richey, Florida, you know. And then 1988, when I was 18 and starting to sneak into 21 and up clubs, there was house music getting thrown in with all the industrial stuff and the alternative stuff. And then once, you know, by 89, rave culture was super popular in the UK, and you know, you'd see, you know, the little MTV stingers would have, you know, Jackmaster, Farley Funk playing, you know, that type of tracks on there and whatnot, house tracks.
What, like in between the segments?
Yeah, the stingers, you know, like little music things and stuff. Yeah, yep. You know, Jack your body, MTV.
Sure.
And so, like, there might be an off night, like a Thursday night acid house night, but then, you know, eventually, once the hardcore rave stuff happened, you know, that I think brought in all sorts of us kids who were out in the suburbs, you know, especially in places like England too, obviously, because now all of a sudden you're taking the beats from Public Enemy, speeding them up, putting them on top of house records, you know, like, and you know, it was amazing to be able to even talk about it like this now. You know, it's like now I feel like everyone's like, yep, we've all heard this story about how house music became this and that. But
well, yeah,
I don't think people have heard this story enough.
I agree. I don't think the history's been told.
I mean, like, you hear the Chicago story sometimes, you hear the Detroit story sometimes, you hear the New York story even less than that.
I think it's important. I even told you guys this.
Friends that are just lost.
And you know, we're like this narrow group of cultural ambassadors that are obsessed with this kind of stuff. But yeah, you know,
talking to you guys about Boston stuff, and I remember talking about how truly amazing, because this is around 2015. I think I chatted with you guys about this. It's just like, you know, eventually, you know, this music is becoming so big, and I'm only ever thinking about things on an underground level. But you know, no longer do you have to be from Detroit to make the great Detroit techno record. You know, you can be like Convection and be from Dallas, you know, or you can be from Italy, or you can be in a room, you know, this has always been the thing with this culture. You can be in a room with anyone, anywhere in the world, and not speak the same language. You can put that instrumental record on with the 303 or something, you know, or a house record with house vocal, and just the uplifting nature of it, even if you don't know what it's saying, you know, it speaks.
You've got the message, yeah.
You know, it's speaking to everyone the same way at the same time, but I remember telling you guys, you know, it's going to get to a point where every story will be told, you know, whether it's, you know, the kids who were throwing parties in Dallas, or, you know, outside of the Start Club, or whether it's the DJ that came up from Newport Richey, Florida, you know, who somehow is still DJing 30 years down the line, you know, like, or the two guys from Boston who have an impeccable knowledge of disco, you know, like, it's just like,
I'd like to meet those guys.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's what's brilliant.
But I'm wondering if we can do this while we chat, because, you know, we know you, we know your history, we know what your sound is like when you're performing out there in the world. For a lot of your fans, they know as for those that don't know, DJ 3's range is really wide. Like at one moment he might be doing his thing playing at the Guggenheim Museum in New York and doing really ambient stuff, really kind of strange techno experimental stuff. He might be playing at a stage at Get Lost. He might be performing alongside Damian Lazarus and DJ Tennis as Wizardry and rocking the main stage doing their breed of house and techno. But back in the 90s, you were while you were cutting your teeth, and cutting I use lightly because I do mean cutting and scratching. There's a mixtape that is surfaced from 1993 of you playing more Miami bass and this kind of stuff, which is, I think, a side that the world really hasn't seen. Are you comfortable with us sharing this? Do you want to talk about what's going on with this? Is this?
I'm finally gonna let that mix out digitally to the world this year. There's so much story behind that mix.
Johnny, can we pull this up? It says a mega mix from '93 with 3 scratching. Maybe we can play it in the background while you kind of like tell the story.
Yeah. That thing has it all. It's got SOS stuff, like old school Baltimore beats, Baltimore breaks, we used to call it. I guess they call it Baltimore Club these days.
For sure.
It's still out there. But that mix, okay, so it's a 30-minute mix, and there was a really, really famous club on the east coast of Florida called Mars. And, everyone wanted to play there, and it was definitely all-nighter and heavy party vibes, had a reputation of being a little sloppy, both on the business side and otherwise. No offense, Dave Mirsky. But yeah, the owner, there's definitely an air of hubris involved, I think, because I remember I was working at the record store in Tampa, and it's early June 1993. And someone was like, "Oh, that's awesome! You're going to be at the Mars DJ battle." And I was like, "What?" I was like, and there were a lot of things. I had some high aspirations, if not just rose petal glasses on, about rave culture. Because I thought it was really stupid to have a DJ contest in rave culture, because that's like, that's hip hop. That's contest. That's who's the coolest. That rave culture was supposed to be above all that shit. It was supposed to be, obviously there was going to be a favorite, and the favorite would be determined by, the people, that sort of thing. But there shouldn't be contests. There shouldn't be rankings. Just like I felt like there shouldn't be Orbital doing rock and roll tours, with doors at 11, stuff like that. And,
maybe you can keep. Oh, do we have no volume control? Is that a SoundCloud thing, Eli? No volume control over there?
Control.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought this would be great. He could be narrating on top.
Well, I'll give the short version of the story. So
hit SoundCloud. What's the URL? It's soundcloud.com.
You know what? I haven't made it public yet, so this is pickle for people.
We jumped the gun. This is just another.
I had this mix years ago, and I was supposed to post it on the Soul Clap Adventures of Soul Clap podcast, and then just
yeah. Well, but this definitely culturally references a lot of what was going on in Florida at that time. Just talking about it, but so I was really annoyed that they had the balls to put me on the flyer without asking, and then I called and I'm like, hey, and B, I hated the idea of a DJ contest in house music. I thought it went completely against that. Now everything goes against what I thought this culture was supposed to be about. But I was just like, no. I was like, this is so stupid, and no contest. And then I said, but then I thought about it, and I was like, all right, well, I'll go, and I'm gonna play what I know the people are gonna. I had a plan, So I called up and I told him, I'm like, yeah, I'll play, but what's the fee? And he's like, fee? He's like, no, you should just be happy to be even invited. And I was like, no. So I demanded a fee because I felt it was already going against my principle, which was a whopping $250 at the time. Hey, man,
that's not bad back in the day.
but so I demanded my $250, and the way it was supposed to work was it was a 2-week thing, single elimination, and it was basically 2 DJs each played 30 minutes, and then at the end, the crowd noise determines what DJ moves to the next round. So I was like, okay, so, and I, the sound of the day, was predominantly, breaks, electro, and UK breaks, and that's not what I played at all, but that didn't mean I didn't like that music. So I had a shitload of that music in my record collection. So I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to play this music that people can't seem to get past in a way that they've never heard it before, because, I was fascinated with DJ culture, before house music. So, everyone back then who had turntables was a wannabe turntablist, right? And I know I see people like, everyone has this feel. Like I see Danny Days posting pictures of him scratching all this, like everyone who grew up at least maybe around electro music, come. And if you were DJing in the early 90s, you have a DJ skill set. You know how to do doubling, tripling, basic beat echoes. You know how to phase, because there were no Pioneer mixers.
For sure.
That's how you did it. You had
no,
to
I mean, like, I think anyone that gets the two turntables and has an interest in DJing at some time is going to try to wiki. You know what I mean?
Long
That's
story
like
short,
the natural.
I put together this set. It's like 20 records in 30 minutes, and it's got cutting, scratching. I'm not DJ craze. It's a mega mix. I wouldn't call it turntablism. I think a mega mix is a fair thing to say when there's some cutting and scratching involved in a long form dance floor format.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I made it I blazed through the first week, and thankfully, but the second week came and it got down to the local hero and me, and so they did the crowd noise 3 times, and of course they gave it to I'm saying it now, but they give it to the local guy because the most noise. But I made a real big fuss with this tape, right? And with this set. So I went and I recorded it, down to tape, and I gave out about 50 tapes, 100 tapes, thinking that it would just be something for the crew that liked that music, and that's it. But man, it backfired on me big time. It became such a thing, and all of a sudden, within a month, there were like an extra 100 people lining up outside clubs to hear me play, and this was the start of what became a thing for me, where people would say, "God, 3 was so amazing last week, but this week he was horrible." So there was all this, like, because people really didn't know what to expect or what to play.
Wait, is this you scratching here in the back?
Yeah.
Dude, listen to those cuts, everybody.
So
some quick cuts.
It would be crazy shit, because this would move on like into 1994. I remember Paperclip People Throw came out, and I was starting to play longer sets. 2-3 hours was considered really long back in the rave culture days, and
Still is, man. Still is.
And so I remember once, I'm playing, I'm going through my stuff. I'm playing, Future Sound of London. I'm playing UK stuff, like Gat the Core, and then I'd play Paperclip People Throw. And in the course of 13 minutes, that song's so long, right? And the whole room's going crazy. Then part of the room leaves the dance floor. Then I start getting booed. And then the breakdown comes. And by the time the end of the breakdown, people are cheering again. You're like, that's the type of stuff that was happening with me back then, because people just did not understand the eclecticism or me really forcing the issue with all the mixing. Plus, the kids who loved that tape just did not get why I didn't sound like that breakbeat mega mix that they had heard. So when I would do some of that, they'd go even crazier. But so this tape would follow me everywhere, to the point where I had a residency at Love in New York for a while, back in the O's. And I remember it was a night I was playing, and you know how the line would go out the club, but it would go up the staircase because you had to go downstairs to get in.
Oh, yeah.
And I was walking down the staircase, real slow, records moving through, and I hear this guy. There's, it's a nice moment, right? You're walking down through the line and you hear people talking about DJ3, and so I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then I hear one guy go, "Yeah, man, you just never know what he's gonna do, man. I remember when people used to boo that guy."
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Were you there in Florida?" And he looks at me like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
That tape has haunted me to this day, man. Like I'm really proud of it. When you're in your 20s, you have a chip on your shoulder about everything, and So I definitely was going in there with a chip on my shoulder to prove a point. You know, the biggest thing about the tape is at the very, very end, you know that old sample drop, the needle scratch, and it goes, hold it. That's played out.
Yep.
You know, so
For sure.
the very last thing that happens at the tape is there's a boom and and the voice goes, hold it. That's played out. And that was like my message. That was me being like, you know, y'all got to stop listening to this, you know, music and move on, you know, a little bit. Or you know, just like I said, when you're in your 20s, you have a bit of an attitude about you worry about where your name is on the flyer, all the things that really aren't important if you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life, the things you're really upset about in your 20s, you know. So, but I tried to put a message at the end of it and everything, but instead it really just helped make me a much more popular DJ. You know?
Well, I think it's a super dope mix, and our producers think so too. He's dropping message. This is so dope. I highly encourage you to put it out. And Eli, why don't we do it? If he's down with it, we can relaunch the Adventures Soul Clap blog.
Well, your guys' blog has always been so nice to me. I remember you guys put up the Guggenheim mix before we even really met.
That's true.
And then you put up the
that was my first introduction to your music and you as a DJ. And I can't remember where. I think at that time there was just a lot of blogs going on.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of content and Meet DJ mixes available for download. But this was coming from house music. That mix was a lot more explorations with ambient stuff and some minimal stuff and techno and super appropriate. I mean, it's Guggenheim, it's super appropriate. And I just remember listening to that and just being introduced to like this whole other side of my brain. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting to hear.
I mean, that's really an incredible mix.
And this is
just a little funny story. When I went looking for the link because you were coming on the show, I told this Eli, you don't know this. I told Chris this earlier, but like I went Googling for the link and I realized that it was from our website. That was like where the mix was hosted. I couldn't find it anywhere else.
When you guys put the Martini drum and bass mix up,
Johnny, maybe we can switch to that to a little bit of that Guggenheim. We can give him a taste of some of that stuff. Just hit it right from the beginning, please.
Yeah, there's also the Martini drum and bass mix that he mentioned.
Yeah, when you guys put that up, it was amazing because I think RA made that mix of the day because of your blog, and that was really cool, man. I really appreciate that. I was always notorious or known for not letting myself be recorded, so I was really, because my attitude was you're supposed to be there and be a participant. That's why I always kind of laugh when these, so and so's top 5 mixes of the month and stuff. But that was pre-COVID. I used to have a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. Now we're all bedroom DJs and we're all sitting at home listening to mixes. But my attitude back in the mixtape days was, no, you can't tape me. And I wanted people to hear, word of mouth, be like, holy shit, it was an amazing night. You have to go. And especially once I realized that, at first I was a little unnerved when people would be like, oh God, I loved you last week, but I hated you this week. But I realized if the dance floor is completely full and there's a group of people, even if it's your closest friends who didn't like what you played, they're just collateral damage. They don't matter. So what matters is the dance floor is full and the dance floor is having a good time. To me, if you're not, if everyone likes what you play the same way every time you play it, then you're probably, becoming a kind of a 1 or 2 dimensional DJ, and that's not interesting to me. I think it's far more interesting when everyone's playing, playing to the room, rising to the occasion. But I think maybe too when you get to a certain status where you just have a full room every time you walk in, the really, really big DJs, then maybe people get lazy. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I started to feel a lot better about the eclectic thing. That's why I didn't want people to tape me, is because I wanted it to be word of mouth that, you have to go see this guy.
What was going through your mind when you did this Guggenheim mix? Like, where did you think, like, or performance, like what did the room look like? I mean, for people that have never seen the Guggenheim in New York, it's such an interesting architectural building. You know, it's got this large spiral staircase going up along the sides and big open atrium in the middle.
You walk in there and it's, you know, a bunch of people drinking wine out of plastic cups, basically. You know? So, you know, I'm not going to just drop into, you know, Circus Bells, you know, or Jack and Hart Chicago stuff right away or anything, you know. So, and I have all that music with me all the time. You know, I always bring way much more music than I ever needed to any gig because, you know, maybe a DJ won't show up, or maybe it might be that night you get to play that one record. You know.
So if people want to, like, we can just tease a little bit of it, but if they want to hear more, I think you can go to our website, soulclap.us, and hit the blog, and maybe search. Can you search for it, Eli?
I'm gonna put a bunch more mixes up. You know, I would love it if you guys would you know, just I don't know, just relaunch or just freshen up your. I don't know what's going on with your blog, but I would love it if that came back because I love the fact that the mixes are there. But I have so many mixes. One idea that I've come up with during COVID is to come up with a series called Mixtape, where it'll be me and other friends that I asked from the '90s, all, you know, every so often post a mix that is either really fit, like for example, if I asked Jano and San Fran, it would be Bang the Drum. If I asked Doc, it would be Go Home With Yourself. There's just certain tapes that I know.
No, wait a second. It's a little too loud, Johnny. Can you turn it down a little bit? This is an important one. I had this idea a couple years ago to do a podcast about classic mixes.
Yeah.
Where you have on the DJ who made the mix.
Yeah, I think I actually talked to you guys about it. And,
I remember talking to you about that.
And I talked to Accelerator about it, and Bruce Tanzan was their head writer at the time, and it was going to be a thing on Accelerator, but then I let the ball drop. But now, you know, I feel like, you know, A, I'm not getting any younger, and B, now, you know, we all just need stuff to listen to, man, don't we? We're home, you know. I think, you know, that's one side effect of touring all the time is sometimes you just get caught up in touring, and that's not real work. That's going out and playing music to people. You know, the real work is planning. You know, writing music and releasing music and running the label and throwing events and contributing to the culture that, you know, that allows you to exist, or the culture you came up in. And then, you know, it's other stuff like ideas like this, podcasts and things like that. But sometimes, you know, when you're on the road, you know, only 1 or 2 days a week, you're really, you know, feeling great, you know, from all the travel and all that. Of course, all that's gone, and now I have a lot of time to get a lot of things done, you know.
Yeah, how do you feel your brain's working differently, having just like an opportunity to catch up on sleep and not have to keep hopping around?
I don't know. If anything, maybe it's a wake-up call to how, you know, I see a lot of people posting things about how they've stopped smoking weed because they were just smoking too much because they weren't able to go out, stuff like that. I don't smoke weed, but, you know, I've certainly, you know, done my thing in my lifetime. But I find, you know, things like anxiety and depression are still there, whether you're, you know, whether you're not drinking or on traveling or not. But, you know, physically, I feel really good. I think I've lost a lot of weight in COVID, which is weird because I keep seeing people post about how much weight they've gained, but I've lost about 14 pounds since I don't know, since February.
Wow, congrats! That's great.
I think it's just because I'm eating small portions and I'm eating, you know, regularly, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, instead of, you know, like travel days where you're only eating peanuts on the plane or, you know, stuff like that. Yep. And then you eat a big meal before the gig, but then you're, you know, even if you're not on a heavy party lifestyle, just the maintaining things like dehydration, you know, once you get over age 40, you know, you can smell your own mortality. You know? and you have to be a lot more, you know, you have to take care of yourself. Those are big things at DJ3. Pay your taxes, yeah, you know, handle your shit, you know,
hydrate,
and pay your taxes. I would talk to, you know, veterans for advice, people I looked up to and stuff back in the day, and I'd be like, and I'd go on for 20 minutes about, well, this and that, blah blah blah. And David Christopher actually around the moon one day just listened to me go on and on and on, and I said all my piece, and I was waiting for this big elaborate, you know, philosophical diatribe from him, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Handle your shit and don't suck."
And don't suck. I mean, not sucking, that's key in the arts.
Yeah. But the handle your shit part, trust me, that may sound silly, but it's layers deep. You gotta handle your shit. Be honest. And with everything that we see going on around us, being exposed in our industry and stuff, that it's important. The most important thing about it, beyond oh my god, I can't believe so and so did this or that, is the fact that it's forcing everyone to talk about things and examine them, all at one time. I think that that's hugely important. Whether it's race stuff, quality stuff, or whether it's more criminal things, everyone needs to be aware. And,
dude, we should have had having this mix go on like the whole show. Can I train spot real quick? Is this orb or orbital?
That is the orb, yeah.
It is the orb.
The orb. There's a Scanner record that I love that I bought. I forget what's the store in Manchester that eventually became Boomcat.
Oh,
I don't know what it was called before Boomcat.
What's that?
I don't know what it was called before that.
Yeah. I remember being there and one day, and I bought the first Burial album. I bought this amazing Scanner 12-inch, and I bought Tom York's first solo album. And honestly, it's one of the that's a long time ago, and I remember that day as such a joy buying Music Day because all those things were so good. and also being able to go record shopping in Manchester, that was just fucking awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned Rabbit in the Moon, and I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is those were your homies. You worked a lot with them. Tell us more about Rabbit in the Moon. They were super important. I guess they're still doing stuff. I saw that they've maintained relevance at playing some of the bigger festivals around the U.S. because I guess big.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys, such a there's a lot of eras of Rabbit in the Moon. In the '90s, though, it was DJ Monk and David Christopher, and David was one of the people I met that we threw one of our first warehouse parties together. And he and I were initially noodling around on music, and he met Monk, and they really hit it off with a little more loose, fun, sample-heavy vibes and stuff. And that became, very quickly they gelled and became Rabbit in the Moon. Hallucination Recordings was initially, I think, really just an outlet for them to be able to release music, But then I just, we were all around each other and all doing things together. So I just had a perennial, peripheral role with Hallucination. And that's eventually, so that was 10 years, 92 to 2002. In 2002, I started Hallucination Limited with Monk, just as an umbrella label,
I'm looking on Google while we chat for some visuals so that people that don't know who Rabbit in the Moon are, these guys are doing electronic music, heavily breakbeat influenced.
I mean, they were, in the '90s, they were the thing in America, and
also extremely theatrical in the performance.
Yeah, that was
costume dancers on stage, insane visuals.
That was inspired by things like Meat Beat Manifesto. They used to tour with a performance artist, and Bunny, who became their performance artist and is now a member.
Right, Bunny. Yeah.
He was very influenced by that guy Marcus from Meat Beat, and and he was already doing that type of performance art as well, and so it became a really big thing. But I give them a lot of credit, man. They turned down multiple $1 million major label deals along the way, and they kept it real for a really long time. But like I said, though, it goes into eras, but that main era, though, from 92 to 2002 or whatever, was they're definitely a cornerstone of American rave culture history for sure.
I just found a clip from, it looks like 2016 at an EDC in Orlando, and it looks like they're doing some funny. I use that word lightly. Some political stuff. Johnny, you want to pull that link up? Maybe take a look at.
I mean, Dave, comes from my era.
Oh, this is a 30 minutes long. Sorry.
Dave comes from my era of dance music, so he's definitely from an era where bands like, Ministry and whoever else were always, making social commentary and the visuals. So that's why.
I managed to pick like the world's worst shot video.
Right.
But it looks like they're doing like some a commentary on corporate America.
Sure, yeah, that's great. Dave's so talented. He's excelled in so many areas of music. What they're doing here with the EDC stuff is, it's a lot different. But Dave's just so talented, man. If it wasn't for him, I probably would have, not started screwing around with music myself. And he was definitely, a big part of me, doing that for sure. We were big influence.
Sorry about that clip. That was like the worst clip I could have picked.
No, man, it's fine. But then there's also Grumptronics, who ran Erotic City Communications, also under the Hallucination umbrella, which is a label that is very beloved but very underground. But it was a big favorite of Andy Weatherall in the Haywire Sessions days. Weatherall was always everything we did. He was such a supporter of, and it was cool because we didn't know him. So it was always just really cool to find out he was playing the records,
Oh man, yeah.
It was actually
What a
really,
loss.
yeah, it's really something because the messed up thing is I never actually got to meet Andrew Weatherall, and he had been playing Secondhand Satellites a lot the last 5 years, like opening Digital Festival with it and just putting it in mixes. And so Grumptronics had already started a new label, which is to me one of the better new American labels at the moment. A little plug for him, called Bodyworks. And he had signed a Timothy J. Fairplay record, and this is sometime within the last 5 years. And in the process, Grump's talking to him about Weatherall and stuff, because he was for a while. Andy had a lot of collaborators, and so Grump had just thrown in there, be like, hey, see if Andrew Weatherall might be interested in remixing Secondhand Satellites. And he was, and totally into it. But, Weatherall, I feel a certain kinship to him in a way, and that, we don't just wake up and make millions of tracks a day and stuff. So it was just like, there was no pressure, but there was, it was on the table. And so I never got to meet him, and there was a possibility of a Secondhand Satellites remix. It's a little cheeky telling the story, to be honest, but
no, it's fine. You're all about teasing the people today.
Yeah, there's so many. There's I guess this is a transition into talking about Secondhand Satellites, but there continues to this day to be just so many wonderful things about that particular record. And it gets played every weekend still by DJs from you guys to Ricardo to Craig Rich, it's just all sorts of people. And, there had been so many amazing stories. And so that many years into it, to discover that Weatherall also was a big fan of the record, and to have that dialogue recently and stuff was, felt really nice.
I'm sorry to rewind us, but you're talking about Grumptronics, and we should shout him out because he's in the chat room right now. So
Grump is
shout out to Grump.
He's my right brain or my left brain. I don't know, whichever one's the better half. He's my one. And there's definitely, I will say there's definitely no DJ3 without Grumptronics. He's man, you want to check out some wicked mixes on SoundCloud, you check his stuff out, man. The Blueprint Electro Mix, and
wicked.
But look up Erotic City Communications on Discogs. You'll find just unreal. He collaborates with Designers Republic on artwork. We all did, actually. The Hallucination logo was done in conjunction with Designers, and but Grumpy actually made the Hallucination Limited logo, and then I just took out the brackets from it to make the Hallucienda logo. But Grumpy's new label, Bodyworks, though, he's done a full art capsule with the guys from Designers Republic. I think he even made their book. They just put out a book of all this stuff. There's Bodywork stuff in the book. But he's got records he's not screwing around. He's got records coming from Kirk DiGregorio. I probably said his name wrong. Kirk. And, man, what else he got? Timothy Fairplay. Orlando Vroon. Oh, my God, I love Orlando Vroon.
Oh, yeah.
He's a diamond, man.
Big UR fans.
That's a big thing, too, that I think is lost on a lot of culture. A lot of people, especially up-and-coming underground kids, think that if they're not blasting it on social media, that that they're not known. Their work will never be known. And Grump's a perfect example, man. He walks. He doesn't even walk softly. He walks silently and carries a big art stick with all his stuff. I can't say enough about Grump. He's a legend. He's a legend.
Well, shout you out, Grump.
Can we turn this up for a minute? Just gotta feel this one, you know.
This is DJ3's Secondhand Satellites, along with Sean Cusick as partner. And this record has really stood the test of time, with many different variations of this song called Orbit. This one's called Orbit 1.3. And there was even some very difficult to find versions. Orbit 1 point something else, 2.3 point, what was it? 1.2 that was going for buco bucks on Discogs for the collectors.
Yeah, we've been so lucky with the catalog. You know, the goal is always to try to make, music that's going to stand the test of time, but you have no way of knowing if that's going to happen or not. And we've just been so lucky through Hallucination Limited, and the way Hallucienda is evolving. I've always been more about being timeless rather than timely. But of course, anyone can say that, but you have no idea if it's going to happen or not. So it's just, really fortunate to see that the music is resonated with so many people, so many different types of people too.
Can we talk about this triangle?
Stop talking.
I'm not talking about that triangle because
I want to talk about that triangle.
No.
Let's talk about that triangle.
That triangle has been used by a lot of people. That's
a tickly triangle. I really like that.
Yeah, everyone cuts it up and trims it their own way, but that's a very. I'm sure the guy who played that triangle probably didn't even get paid to be in the studio that day, but that's probably.
I think it's hard to make it as a triangle player. All right, turn that up, Johnny. Is there any particular gear that was used in the making of this track that maybe the nerds might want to learn about?
Yeah, I think the spinal core of it all is all this stuff going through a high sampler, specifically on this one. I was never an MPC guy. I like the S stuff, the rack mounts. So there's a S3000XL and an S2800 and a Roland JD990 rack mount. PCM 80 processor, couple Junos.
Two Junos.
Yeah.
You need to hear that, people. If you want that secondhand satellite sound, you need two Junos.
One of them died, and we had to get creative. Sean was really well versed in the Akai, and he was able to recreate the waveform that we were using for one of the sounds in the Juno for Orbit 1.5, and basically recreated it within the sampler, which was pretty amazing. Looking back on that. But that's what I love. Yeah, that's why I like the S's more than the MPCs, because you can do more stuff with there's waveforms, and the XLs come with all those things inside already. I'm gonna try and get an S3200 XL from a friend. I'm not gonna say who, so no one goes and gets it. And because I got a friend who can do the USB mod, And I just love that sound. That's the sound of so much 90s music, 90s dance music. I always knew all those samplers, all the different ones would be known for their own specific sound. The SP1200, the S950, the MPC 62, the MPC 3000. But that whole range from the 62 to the 2000 XL and the MPCs, and then all the S's. Like the 950 is amazing. But if you're talking storage, if you go from like the S1100 to S3200 XL, but I'm told the 5000 and the 6000 have the same stereo outs as well. It's all about the outs. But those are the only ones. If you get into those new little MPC things and stuff, those don't have those don't have.
You've only got stereo output.
It doesn't have those out. Yeah. So like I don't know. I would hear stories, urban legends of people like William Orbit, basically taking finished tracks and just running all the parts just through the two stereo outs, just as post production. And Dr. Dre would say that for many years, when he would compare Pro Tools to his MPC with just the two stereo outs, that nothing ever compared. And he's like, until digital sounds better than those two stereo outs, I don't know what it's like now. I mean, that interview was probably 10, 15 years ago, but even the back of some of them have as many as 8 outs, but when you start separating everything out, it just doesn't quite sound the same. I don't know, it's how it's summed or what. But and then I don't know. There is other secondhand satellite stuff that I'm kind of working on, sort of a bigger idea for to get some things out next
stuff.
year. It's a studio project, and there's other. It's me, Sean, and then there's 2 artists that are long-term friends of mine who live very quiet lives. They're family man for all intents and purposes, and they're not out raving every weekend.
Dude, don't give it away their secrets.
No, but it's I won't give away.
They're party animals.
One of them's called Slip Disco.
Slip Disco.
Slip Disco, yeah. And one of them's called Nero K, and they are just geniuses.
That's perfect.
I'm putting out their music too, but it's kind of like, you remember when they started putting out the albums for the Artificial Intelligence series on Warp in the early 90s, and like the Black Dog one it was called Bites, and it was a Black Dog production, and it was all their work. It was Belial, it was Plaid, and Black Dog. And so I think basically what I'll do is I'll unveil these things. Some of them will be secondhand satellites, some of them will be maybe Slip Disco, but underneath it'll say an SHS production, because they're all coming together collectively through. I'm basically acting as an arbiter or filter, both as a producer and an executive producer.
Producing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff with that, which brings, I don't know, I do want to mention about the label too, about Halucienda. There's a lot I didn't realize as I was putting together the catalog of artists over the past couple of years, that it just sort of happened serendipitously, or I guess organically, that everyone had a connection somehow through Florida. Whether it was there's an artist called Locksmith, and his real name's Mark, and I called him one day, and his phone number came up with a 727 area code, which is Clearwater, Florida. And I was like, what's the 727 area code? He's like, yeah, I grew up, my parents were there, stuff. And I had no idea. So like, there's ones that are like totally serendipitous like that. But then there's other cats like Chris Mitchell, who's already been released on the label, and Amir Alexander. I can't say enough about Amir. And that guy,
he's a Florida cat?
Yeah, he's a Florida. He came up in the Florida rave scene. So Amir, Una, Chris Mitchell, excuse me. So there's more, and now I'm forgetting artists on my label. That's great. Oh, you know who else?
Can I just real quick, just a quick aside. You and Una are engaged now?
We are engaged. Yeah.
Congratulate you officially.
Yeah. Mazel tov.
2020 be damned. We got engaged, and it feels amazing. She's an incredible artist. She just finished her follow-up album to Hologramma for Halucienda, which is definitely a more left field indie electronica, however you want to frame it, side of her. She's really her inspirations coming up were very much things like Bjork and stuff, and so she revealed herself on that first album to really be an emerging songwriter that way, which really blew me away. When I first saw those demos. It's actually a funny story because it was years prior. I think she was not even living in Berlin yet, and at the time, she's here with me now. And I stumbled upon her SoundCloud at like 2 a.m. and found these tracks, these like 3.5 minute long tracks that were more like some of the more vocal ambient electronic things on like early this. There's not very many albums of theirs, but like This Mortal Coil albums and stuff like that, like 4AD electronica type stuff. And I was just, I called her up at 2 a.m. I was like, what the hell is this stuff on your SoundCloud? And she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, this song, like, Trees Cry, Weight Lifted. And she just sat there and I was like, hello. And she's like, are you fucking with me? And I was like, no, why? And she's like, remember that USB stick I gave you? Like, last year, whatever. And I was like, hold on a second. And I went in my travel bag and I dug around. I pulled it out. I was like, does it say Una in silver paint pen? And she's like, you're an asshole. So from there, I was like, well, we have to talk. You have to get all this off SoundCloud and all that. And then, but I've also been really fortunate to, in the last 2 years, meet or be approached by Matthias Schaffhauser and Jorge Socaras as Fanatico, which I'm going to plug that. This is their
artist. Look at that artwork.
Yeah, this is with some special ink artwork here, and then also white vinyl. A really big thing, for me at this point is artist albums, and I'm really particular about artist albums. I feel you could have a great artist album, like Terry Francis's album is a collection of 7-minute dance tracks with 2 seconds of space between, but it makes all the tracks they flow, they fit well together. It's a good collection, but I really artist albums to me, the 12 inches for the dance floor, and I'm really interested in artist albums, at this point, with whether it's songwriting or sketches of songs, instead of fully developed club tracks and stuff like that. So to meet the Fanatico guys, I mean, Matthias and Jorge are legends in their own right. Jorge used to work with Patrick Cowley, and he had, highly influential, what I call indie disco or garage disco band called Indoor Life and stuff like that. And their work is just incredible, and they're just really lovely people too. I have the next album that's coming like that is by Ulysses. You guys know Ulysses, Elliot Taub up in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked, with John Selway and stuff. But he's done an album that we've been sitting on for too long that I would just describe as like krautrock electronica. So yeah, I'm trying to, Hallucienda in my head at this point sonically, if I had to make it the simplest description, sitting somewhere between like, Optibone music and 4AD in terms of like, house and techno that has a lot of really, a lot of character. I'm not trying to release, stuff that sounds like facsimiles of, other music, everything ends up sounding like something else in the end. But I just, I don't know if you ever checked out that Accelerator podcast I did of all the Hallucienda stuff, but that's like, from then to now, the goal is always to have your own thumbprint on the sound. Otherwise, for me, it's just been like, what's the point? You need to contribute. You need know your history, acknowledge your influences, but also, you want to contribute something that's, your own, I don't know, thumbprint on the sound. I think that's really important.
And I'm sorry, I just saw DJ Minx in the chat room. Want to shout her out.
Oh shit!
Who's showing some love for on the artwork of that new vinyl release that you showed. I also want to plug that she's going to be coming on Schmoozing with us September 22nd. So shout out to you, DJ Minx, Women on Wax, Detroit.
And
Can't wait to have you on the show.
I think I got to catch some of her. I was in another room in the club in San Francisco on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. Pretty sure she played for the Sunset Sound System guys. She's awesome.
Oh,
man.
dope.
Yeah, she's great.
You guys have had amazing guests. I can't thank you enough for having me on the show.
Oh, well,
pleasure, man. We actually sadly got to wind it down. We're approaching the 2 hour mark. But if people want more info on Hallucienda, where should they go?
Hallucienda.com. I think at the moment that probably just, here I am preaching, go get your own website. But it probably takes you to Facebook page and Hallucienda Bandcamp, Hallucienda on Beatport. Really, to me, it's less about the only thing it's really about is discovering the music, isn't it? So,
Yep.
I wanted to slide in there a little surprise for you, Eli, because that was when I was looking for content and maybe interviews, videos of DJ3 out in the world. There was a interview from him at DEMF Movement Festival about 10 years ago, maybe less. And I think DJ3 is plug-in, or they use your Mishmash remix from your the Crosstown Rebels release, and they're doing crowd shots of like the Beatport stage, and there's like some amazing footage of you and Drea out there dancing in the crowd. I saw a jazz spinner and his wife out there, and some great old school.
I remember.
It's not old school, but some great faces from back then.
I think Gotti and Eli and maybe Gotti and Denise were doing their best sort of line dancing behind me on the Beatport stage.
They were line dancing. Well, there was a lot of friends from the Marcy Hotel, Wolf and Lamb scene from Williamsburg back in that little period of time, and I think that can connect us up for our final thoughts today, which is the end of the show where we like to play a record. We've got Zeb from Wolf and Lamb's release on Hallucination. Do you want to talk about the Marcy at all for a minute before we go?
It's just a great time. It really that decade turn in 2010 is really where the steam really picked up for them and you guys, and that's where we all really started to become better friends or interact more. And I'm a big fan of Gotti's music, big fan of Zeb's music. I always thought that Zeb was just the quiet standout, just dropping bombs left and right. So I'd always be like, "So what you got, yo?" I don't know, these half finished things. I'm like, "I'll take those."
Well, I think it was the perfect home for those tracks.
It was a great time. That was the beginning of what was really the close to the end of my 10, 11, 12-year run in New York before I moved back to Florida. And so that was incredible times.
Awesome.
But I don't know. Any final thoughts? I guess I want to just try to convince and inspire label owners and DJs to think twice, to double check, and to pay your taxes and control your content.
You should tell them to think 3 times.
Think 3 times. Yeah, but think twice. Think twice before you bark on social media. Double check before you post something where you think you're so right about something, but maybe you didn't do your due diligence to find out. And put in the work, man. It's something that we all never really truly learn. I guess some people do. I might be a late bloomer, but do the work.
Well, shout out to in the chat room A1 Voodoo, who said, you could do a 10-hour interview with Chris and still only get through a few moments of this man's history.
Shout out to him. That is a great guy right there. He runs arguably the longest continuously running American drum and bass label. It's called Force Recordings.
Nice.
He's yet another kid from Tampa that should have been mentioned in the story with Grumptronics, Robin the Moon, everybody else. And in fact, he and his partner, his wife actually, do music together, and they're doing a remix for something coming up on the label soon. It'll be the first drum and bass thing on the label.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, they're very
A1 Voodoo in the
house.
house.
Bodyworks, Hallucienda, Erotic City Communications. Check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, DJ3.
Thank you, guys. Seriously.
Honor to have you on the show. He's out of here. I love that guy.
Yeah, that was great. I didn't get to ask him about Simons. I feel kind of sad about that.
Shit, man.
The legendary Florida club in Gainesville. But
it's all right. We'll have him back. We're only just getting started. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off and start turning the cameras on the turntable here. We're going to play one of the cuts off of Zev from Wolf and Lamb's EP on Hallucination. Go check it out. Get your copy from Chris. Maybe it's on the Bandcamp. Maybe not. I don't know. But the song is called Queen of Hearts. Eli, I love you, brother. See
All right.
you soon.
See you next week. Well, I'll see you before that, but we'll see. I'll see you here next week. And next week,
yeah, let's plug next week.
You get their things ready. I'll start plugging guests. So
Shit,
we
let's
got
start.
we got next week. We got Damian Lazarus, a collaborator of DJ3 for the Wizardry project. Damian is a legendary UK force, the mastermind behind Crosstown Rebels, and another label before that called, was it City of Angels? What was his label called before that? Oh my God, I'm blanking. But been in the game forever. Helped actually get Soul Clap our start.
City Rockers.
City Rockers, right. And that's so Damien, and then the next week is DJ Minx, I believe. And then the week after that is Jubilee. So we've got a great rest of the month. We're also, like we said earlier on, going to be bringing back live performances. So, or really trying to focus on those. So Saucy Lady is going to be popping in to do some jams. And yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Big shiny bus, tractor trailer trucks, rolling down the highway in search of the bugs. Roll up in her cabin, sits the queen of the disengaged. Making it better, one entrance at a time. Easy come, easy go. Be the queen of my heart. When you've had your fill, baby, let me know. I won't lie. I've been waiting all this time for one little country girl to be the queen of my heart. Be the queen of my heart. Be the queen of my heart. Queen of my heart.